Hi, this is Lara at Elliott Wave Stock Market with your twice weekly AAPL analysis done on Monday 1st of April. I'm recording this video 20 past 10 late in the evening New York time on Monday the 1st New York time, the first day of trading after the markets opened after Easter. Here is my main daily wave count, which sees a cycle degree zigzag unfolding, a super cycle degree zigzag, and within that supercycle degree zigzag, cycle wave A should subdivide into a 5-wave structure at primary degree. So we have primary 1 and 2 complete and primary 3 extending. It will reach 1.618, the length of primary 1 at 272. That's a long-term target, still months away. Primary wave 3 can only subdivide into one structure, an impulse. So far to the downside, we have intermediate wave 1 complete and intermediate wave 2 probably incomplete. It's got a really clear trend channel breach of this little channel drawn using Elliott's technique around this impulse. So the downwards trend for now is over, and the upwards trend should be a really obvious 3-wave structure. The most common structure for a second wave correction is a zigzag, which it would expect minor A to subdivide to a 5, B should be a 3 and can't make a new low beyond the start of A, and when it's done, C should be a 5 upwards. At this stage, I'll still expect intermediate wave 2 to reach up to the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio of intermediate wave 1 down, which is at 527.51. Intermediate wave 2 may not move beyond the start of 1. This main wave count is invalidated at intermediate degree with movement above 594.59. If that were to happen, we will use my alternate daily wave count. Let's have a look at this structure on the hourly chart. I have 2 hourly wave counts for this one today. At the end of intermediate wave 1 will be just off to the left of the chart, and the high of minor A here is this point up here. This is my main hourly wave count, which sees intermediate wave 2 unfolding as a zigzag, and this upwards movement subdividing as a 5-wave structure. Within minor wave A, minute wave 3 is 3.23 longer than 1.618, the length of minute wave 1, and minute wave 5 is just 1.87 short of equality with minute wave 1. So those are typical ratios within the actionary waves of an impulse. Also, when we use Elliott's first channeling technique to draw a trend channel around this upwards movement from the high of minute 1 to the high of minute 3 and place a copy on the low of minute 2, it perfectly shows us where minute 4 found support. So this all looks really typical. Minute 2 is a double zigzag and minute 4 a sideways moving triangle. Minute 2 relatively deep, minute 4 relatively shallow. There is perfect alternation between those corrections, and they're very nicely in proportion. For those reasons, this is my main wave count. It has by far the best look and fit. It expects that minor wave B cannot move beyond the start of A below 419. If downwards movement did move below 419 in the short term, this main hourly wave count would be invalidated, and my alternate, which I'll go over quickly next, would be confirmed. To the downside, this B wave is likely to be unfolding as a zigzag. Sometimes zigzags look a bit like impulses if the B wave within them is relatively brief and is in proportion to the corrections within the impulse for A and C. I was expecting some more downwards movement. My target was 437.5 to end minute wave A here. We did see price move lower. Minute A here is ended at 433.3, 4.2 below my target, before we saw just a little bit of sideways movement in a small triangle. This B wave is very brief and very shallow. Sometimes B waves do that, and this may be the final C wave beginning to the downside. At 421, minute wave C would reach 0.382, the length of minute wave A. I've drawn a best fit parallel channel around this downwards movement. If this channel is clearly breached by upwards movement, I'll expect that minor wave B is finally over, and at that stage minor wave C upwards would be underway. At that stage, when I can have any confidence that minor wave B is over, I can draw a trend channel around this big zigzag for intermediate 2, and I can calculate a target upwards for it to end. I can't do that yet. So I'm expecting it's most likely we'll see a little bit of movement downwards for Apple when markets open tomorrow before we see a resumption of this short-term upwards trend. Alternatively, there's another way to look at this upwards movement, where this high here, labelled minute wave 1, is the same point here. So if we have 1, 2, and 3 and 4 were in here, then this is minor A, minor B was the triangle, and minor C has no Fibonacci ratio to minor wave A. Intermediate wave 2 could have been reasonably brief and shallow zigzag over here. But this wave count doesn't have very good, well, it has okay Fibonacci ratios, but not as good as the main wave count. And importantly, minute wave 4 here is quite out of proportion to minute 2, but they do provide nice alternation between them. Minor wave B is a triangle complete here, is reasonably nicely in proportion to minor A and C. If we see price move below 419 in the short term in the next couple of days, then this alternate would have to be considered as likely. At that stage, we'll consider it's possible we're in a third wave down at intermediate degree, just in the early stages of it. So far to the downside, we may have a 5-wave impulse complete here, so we may be looking at a zigzag probably upwards for a second wave correction. Because it's a second wave correction, I'll expect it to end around about the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio of the first wave at 453.83. Minuet 2 may not move beyond the start of 1. Any movement above 469.95 would invalidate this alternate, but I'll only consider it if we see price move below 419. Alternatively, on the daily chart, we have a 5-3-5 so far to the downside. If supercycle 2 is unfolding as a flat correction, then within it, cycle wave A may itself be unfolding as a flat, which would require primary A to be a 3-wave structure. It may be a complete zigzag here. That would need primary B to also subdivide to a 3 and reach 90% the length of A. So if the main daily wave count is invalidated with movement above 594.59, we can have confidence that price should continue to rise to at least 676.46 and is actually reasonably likely to make a new all-time high. I'll only consider this alternate daily wave count if it's confirmed with movement above this price point, because the main daily wave count still has a higher probability because it's seeing a more common structure unfold in that second wave position. So I'm expecting just a little bit of downwards movement for Apple to start tomorrow's session, unlikely to move below 419, and then I'm expecting resumption of this short-term upwards trend, fairly likely to make a new high. I still think we're in a second wave correction, a big exaggerated zigzag that's going to take maybe another couple of weeks to unfold. That's all for me today with your Apple analysis, and I hope that everyone had a fabulous Easter holiday.